I came up with the title and I didn't like it, but they liked it here, so we kind of kept with it. But I wasn't thinking of necessarily any revolution in particular. Having said that, the image on that we're using for the show is of a man standing with his son. The man, in a way, represents the Industrial Revolution. His son represents a different kind of revolution of popular culture and rock music. So maybe it's those, but it can be anything really, to be honest. A good carte blanche, well, it depends on the artist. It's just the artist doing what they want, being true to what they want to see in a museum, and not feel that they have to make something that will please a director, to something that you would like to see personally. So it's a very personal project, but in a very public place. I work a bit of a mess, and it is a bit of everything, yeah, because I do curate, sort of, but not in a very organised manner necessarily. And I do make art. It's probably a middle ground that probably annoys a lot of people. There's William Scott, a painter from Oakland, California. There's Ed Hall, a banner maker, and he's done a retrospective of his banners from the last 25 years. There's Folk Archive, which is a collection I put together with a friend, Alan Kane, about British folk art and vernacular art. It's like a future folk museum. There's a section on Russian music in the 20s and 30s that I did with through the Theremin Centre and Matt Price, a curator. And there's something on the Golf Draw, the nightclub, about the beginnings of French rock in Paris. And finally, there's a section about the Industrial Revolution and British music, rock music specifically. And how people who lived in those kinds of towns that were industrial actually ended up making music, becoming rock stars effectively. But I suppose I'm interested in the early days of something, when something starts and when it's unformed and when there are no rules. That's interesting, when it begins and it's kind of a bit messy and no one's really sure what it is. That's when things really are interesting. When things become corporate, that's of course when they die really. So the beginnings of scenes are always the most exciting. Because I'm not really working class, but my parents were, but I don't know if that makes any difference, but well, the most interesting things seem to happen in Britain, at least, in terms of music, through that. And also, the Industrial Revolution was powered by that class, and that interests me, and how that's had an effect on Britain. And you just think, well, that could be China now, really. What people are going into these towns and factories and seeing people, thousands of people working in factories, doing things in a repetitive way, living in terrible conditions, striving for some sort of freedom and dignity and so on. And you think, well, that's basically what's happening in India and China. Now they're having some sort of industrial revolution of their own. So it's really, that's about now as well, really. Well, we hear enough from artists, I think. So it's good to hear from other people as well. Artists aren't the only creative people in the world, so I think it's fine to give them a break. Let's hear some other voices.